Sometimes you just need to jump. Today, welcome to Worldwide Wisdom, folks. Chanukah is so much more than meets the eye. Chanukah can easily seem as some sort of a shopping incentive to get everybody into the black, to get all the retailers into the black somehow at the end of the fiscal year. But really, Chanukah is absolutely profound. And today we're going to go pretty deep. So just a warning, okay? A little deeper than yesterday. Well, it's just a continuation of what we learned yesterday. The idea is like this. Jacob. Where does Jacob prosper? Does Jacob prosper in his comfortable home in the promised land? Or does he prosper when he's uncomfortable in the home of the wicked father-in-law Lavan that's trying to rip him off every time he turns around? I want you to use that as a powerful paradigm to be able to understand a profound mystical truth of the universe. Where you are most comfortable is not where you're needed. And where you are needed, you will not be most comfortable. Got that? He's leaving. Where you are. What?
That's like the story, little man's across the street, Sale Street in Chicago, gets hit by a car, and it's wintertime, and someone comes over and puts a blanket on him and says to him, "Are you comfortable?" He says, "Comfortable? I don't know. I make a living."
Are you comfortable? Okay. So here's the point, guys. So where you are comfortable is not where you're needed. And where you're needed, you probably won't be comfortable. And I look in my own life as Chabad rabbis. Where do you think Chabad rabbis are most comfortable? We're most comfortable in 770, in the Rebbe's shul. The Chassid wants to be near his Rebbe, listening to the Rebbe's teachings. You want to be at the ends of the earth. You want to be in Antarctica. You want to be in Vladivostok. You want to be in Siberia. You want to be in China. Oh, we don't want to be there. But that is where we're needed. Palm Beach Gardens, right? That's where we're needed. And that's therefore where our destiny lies and where we will experience our prosperity. It's true of Chabad rabbis. It's true of every individual. Now, we spoke earlier of an example of a marriage. Now, you might be more comfortable not having kids, but when you have kids, you'll be taxed. Your time will be taxed. Your attention will be taxed. Your
Resources are tired.
Yeah, your resources, right? And you think that, well, I'm not going to live the idyllic life that I thought I'm going to have. I walked into somebody's home this weekend, and I just noticed he was sitting on his couch, and his problem was trying to figure which book to read. And I salivated with what I saw, because in my house, it's where am I going to hide if I want to catch 5 minutes of peace, right? That's the big question, right? It's a totally different perspective, right? So when you have kids, you might not be so comfortable, but that's what your destiny is. And that's where your prosperity lies. King Solomon tells us this wisdom when he says in the verse at the very beginning of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, the sun rises and the sun sets and it yearns for its place where it shines. The Zohar explains this is not a reference to the east, it's a reference to the west. That the sun yearns to set, and that's where it shines. The sun experiences its fulfillment, the S-U-N, experiences its fulfillment when it reaches its purpose, not when it expresses itself. Not in the east or in the middle of the day when it's expressing itself, but in the west when it's finished its mission. And it's with these introductions that the Rebbe in this discourse that we're learning introduces us to the notion of why it is that God desired, like the setting of the sun, that God decided to hide his presence, like the setting of the sun, to create this physical world, this lowest physical world. Why is it called lowest? It's lowest because it's most dark when it comes to spiritual awareness. There are worlds of angels, there are worlds of disembodied souls before they're born, their souls after they die. They go up to higher worlds. That's where they're going to. When we talk about heaven, Gan Eden, you're talking about the worlds of Beria and Yetzira, of creation and formation, not necessarily the world of emanation, which is not even for any mortal beings to be able to occupy. So those worlds are spiritually conscious and aware. There's an interesting rule. There's laws in the Torah about how to be buried, for example. You have to be buried under the ground. Cremation is forbidden. You have to sit shiva, so on and so forth. So there's a law that says that what happens if someone tells you what their wishes are, that they don't want their loved ones to observe Torah law when they're dying, right? Just cremate the guy. He gives his wishes. He wants to be cremated. No shiva. Just move on with your life. Keep on going. Don't cry over me, right? Okay. So what are you supposed to do? Now, there's a mitzvah to listen to the words of a dying person, except when it comes to a violation of Torah. You actually don't listen to them. And what's the reason we don't listen to them? Because we say, now they're in Olam Ha'emes. Now they're in the world of truth. And in the world of truth, now they know the truth. As long as, I'm just going to move a sentence. Now that they were as long as they were living in this world, they were in the Alma de Shikra, the world of lies, the world of unconsciousness. Yeah, they didn't know up from down, right from wrong, left from right. But now that their souls have left their bodies and they've risen up to heaven, now they're in Olam Ha'emes, now they're regretting the mistakes that they made. And when they regret the mistakes that they made, now they wish that their loved ones will override their wishes and do the right thing. That's because the souls in the higher worlds are more conscious and aware than we are in this world. How much spirituality are we conscious of in this world? The answer is zero. You've got to really think about sequences of events. You got to look at history, connecting the dots in order to see how things fall into place and to realize the incredible unlikeliness of the survival of the people of Israel despite all odds. I mean, what we're going through right now is unbelievable. It's very difficult to see the hand of God in what's happening in the war in Israel right now. But years from now, we'll look back when Hamas will be nothing but a footnote in history, a despicable footnote in history. We'll look back and be like, wow, how did we survive that? We'll look back and that's when we'll say, that was as miraculous as the 6-day war. If you think about it, that was as miraculous. I mean, think about what Israel has to go through in terms of standing up to international pressure. Think of what Bibi has to go through in terms of standing up to his own cabinet. You saw the 60-minute interview yesterday on the beeper bombs, how he had to stand up to his own Minister of Defense and his own Chief of Staff in the Army, who insisted that we get American permission before we initiate the beeper bombs. And you're like, that's not going to happen. So the courage to stand up to the world, to stand up to your own cabinet, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, right? It's really amazing what we're going through right now. And I think that it's difficult to see the hand of God in real time. But it's much easier to see the hand of God in the rear view mirror. Remember when Moses asks God to show him his secret, he says, you can't see me, but I'll pass by and you'll see my back. It's like a veiled reference to seeing God in the past tense, as opposed to being able to see God in real time. Because the reason is because this world is spiritually dark and dense. And yet, it's this world. This is such a powerful concept that I'm sharing with you right now, guys. This is really a game-changing concept. It's this world, which is so dark, the most dark, where there is zero, not 1% awareness of God, not 5% awareness of God, 0%. It's in this world that's so dark, where God's essence is able to be manifest. Now, this is a very, very subtle, powerful, incredible concept. Now, God's essence. Yes, I'm sorry. What's the question?
I'm going to challenge you a little bit, Rabbi. Does God really hide his presence with so many miracles that happen all the time? So
give me an example of the miracles that happen all the time.
Well, the beeper bombs you were saying.
Well, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, but I mean, is he really hiding his presence? Because on a day-to-day basis, we may not see it as individuals, but there are miracles happening all over the world. God's presence is everywhere. So how's he hiding his presence? I think he's...
Is everybody conscious of these miracles?
No.
So that's my point.
That's it. That's why it's in. But what's going on in Israel, I think you have to be, as a Jew, totally unconscious not to see the miracles of this. The beeper bombs, Syria falling. It's just,
Look,
it's almost.
I think if you wanted to be an atheist, Harvey, if you wanted to, you could attribute these events to military, to random, to internal conflict. But I agree with you, and that's I think what Mark is also saying, is that there's too much coincidence going on, right? I mean, it's just a matter of time before Yemen is blasted back to the 14th century. It's almost amazing. It's almost amazing how Yemen just brazenly continues to attack. My brother sent me a text message last night, 4:25 this morning. The whole family's in the bomb shelter. Which means all of central Israel, 80% of the population lives in the center of the country. Yeah. The whole country was basically in the bomb shelter this morning at 4 a.m. because of some maniac, the Houthis in Yemen. I mean, I think Israel looks at them like a hemorrhoid. They're like down south, and they're like just annoying. They don't have time to deal with them. Like maybe one day later, when my big problems are handled. But I think by making these the whatever Israel's doing one at a time, like fighting off each one of them, finally get to the hemorrhoid, and it's never gonna be the same again over there. I think we should establish a southern annex of Israel down there in Yemen. Anyways, that's an interesting conversation. But point is that these are incredible times that we're living in, and they're still unfolding. Imagine you could talk about the 6 Day War in real time. This is amazing. That's what we're doing right now. We're seeing these miracles, and just wait till what happens in Iran right now. There's the new president of America coming up any day now. Any day now. Well, it's like in 3 weeks, right? And I mean, that's going to be like a change in the world order, and there's all sorts of interesting. I mean, the next 3 weeks, just think about that. What could happen on the last 3 weeks of what do they call it? Lame duck presidency, where the guy's on the way out. He has nothing to worry about. Yeah, I mean, listen, Obama did a lot of things in his last few days, and they weren't very good for Israel. Remember that. These are very precarious days that we're going through. Very, very precarious days. I see Odette's mother is from Sana. I hope she's not there anymore. Okay, so Judy lived through the Yom Kippur and the 6 Day War. Very nice. Very good. Yeah. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that we're living through miraculous times, and these miracles are the hand of God, which is far more revealed in this world than in any other world. Because it's only in the lowest of the low, in the bottom of the bottom, just like Jacob's prosperity happens in Baghdad when he's in the most uncomfortable situation. So too when God is in his most uncomfortable situation, quote unquote, as if God can be uncomfortable. But when God is most hidden, it's there that God's essence is most revealed. And this is the idea that we're going to talk about right now. I just want to do it inside the text, page 216. Let's take a look at this magnificent concept, page 216. In addition to being their true place, despite the concealment involved in their descent, their ultimate shine, their revelation, will be accomplished through their descent into the lower worlds, as will be explained in the following paragraphs. So this is the quote from King Solomon. If you want to see the actual quote, it's on page 214, middle of the page, 214 in the gray box. The quote from King Solomon: the sun rises and the sun sets, and it yearns for its place where it shines. So when does the sun shine? When does the sun truly fulfill its purpose? When it sets, when it's not doing what it wants, but when it's doing what it's needed for. Now, here comes this explanation. Here it is. Middle of 216. This might just blow your mind. Warning, okay? Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad, known as the Alter Rebbe, explains in Tanya that even the loftier spiritual worlds are considered a descent from God's ultimate light, his essence light. Why? Because the greatest revelation of godliness must be superior to the spiritual worlds that are created from that revelation. I mean, they're just a revelation of some degree of godliness. So they are a descent from God's essence, which is why the creation of these loftier worlds can't be the ultimate purpose of creation. So the more, when God allows his light to shine in a way that we can appreciate, it's a diluted light. God's essence is too powerful for us to experience. He has to hide his light, like behind a lampshade, or multiple lampshades, which is what's called the tzimtzum, the contraction or the restriction of God's light, in a way that we could, or the angels or souls might be able to to experience and encounter godliness, right? However, so those are that's a descent, that's a downgrade from God. The sun is setting. Think about that, right? However, the worlds of Biyah, which is Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, creation, formation, and action, and particularly the physical world, this world, which is the lowest possible form of existence. Guys, what that means is that there's only one physical world. There's only one physical world, and that's our universe. But there are other worlds that are spiritual. That's important to understand. There's many spiritual worlds. There's only one physical world, which is the lowest world. So these lower worlds, and especially the physical world we live in, have a unique advantage that is not present in any of the loftier worlds. These worlds become a dira betachtonim, which means a home where God's essence will be revealed, similar to how a person's true essence is revealed by the way he behaves within the privacy of his own home. Yeah, Malchus is very interesting. Malchus, yeah, Malchus is the lowest level of the Sefirot, right? You got the 6 emotions that are manifesting through the lowest, which is the communication, which is the mouth, right? In that same way, this world will be considered Malchut, the lowest level. That's where the essence of God is revealed, right? This is a very interesting concept here. It's like, we say in the Chadadi, just try to bear with me a moment, because this is a little ethereal. We say Sof Maaseh b'machshavat chila. Sof Maaseh b'machshavat chila. The final action was the original intention. I'm going to give you an example to explain this. We say this in the Chadadi. The final action was the original intention. Imagine you have a dream with your wife to build a dream home in Palm Beach Gardens. Imagine that's your dream, right? You want to build a dream home. So what do? You hire a realtor and you look for land and you get an engineer and an architect and a plumber and an electrician and a drywall guy, and you're working and working and working. It's a 2-3 year process, right? And the permits and the expediter and everything else that it takes, right? So you're invested, your work is invested with the plumber and the architect and the engineer and the landscaper and everything else, right? But what's the ultimate intention? Where is your true purpose? Your true purpose is in unlocking that door and being able to actually move in. The final action of unlocking the door was the original intention. You with me so far? So where is my true desire? Is my true desire with the plumber and the landscaper? It's not my true desire. The landscaper is just a means to an end. But it's the final step, the very last step, that is manifesting my essential desire. So where does my essence lie? Not in the so who's more important, the locksmith or the engineer or the architect? Architects are fancy schmancy these days, right? Very high-end architects you can get, right? So you want, is it the $1,000 an hour architect, or is it the $10 an hour locksmith? Who's more? Where does my desire lie more in? Well,
Give me his name.
Yeah, Israelis they do. So you see that even though the architect might be more fancy, schmancy, important, educated, yalla, right? It doesn't matter to me what my intention is in the locksmith, in that final hammer blow, which is going to open the door for me and let me in to my dream, to fulfill my dream. That's where my essence lies. In the same way, there's higher worlds and there's lower worlds. There's worlds that are more spiritually conscious and there's worlds that are less spiritually conscious. And then there's this world, which is spiritually dense, brick wall, no light, right? It's in this world that God created all of this descent, was in order to have a relationship with us. Why? Why did he want a relationship with us? Because God wanted a home in Palm Beach Gardens. God wanted a home in Palm Beach Gardens, which means that God's essence, just like my essence or your essence, is revealed when you move into that house. Way more of you, of your pleasure and joy and experience, and your essence is manifest in the moving into the house, much more than when you're dealing with the architects or the lawyers or the realtors or the banks. So too with God, yes, those professions are much more lofty, elevated, and important, but my essence lies in the final stage, which means God's essence lies not in any of these higher worlds, in the world of emanation, formation, creation, in the higher worlds of action. It's only in the lowest world of action, which is the physical world of action, this world. That is the only place where God's essence lies. So that, and how does God's essence become revealed in here? When we sit around the table and we study Chassidus. When we learn about the mitzvah of Chanukah in a way that you're being challenged, you look like you're being challenged a little bit.
I don't know if you want to talk about it now or when you're done.
I'm going to get there. Hold on. So when we study Torah, what we're doing is we're taking something which is way above our heads. It's way above our heads. And we're making an effort to try to make it work. We're trying to filter it into our brains. We try to understand, and I'm trying to explain, and you're trying to understand, and hopefully together with the text, we're going to get there. Hopefully, right?
But we can only understand a little bit of it because we can't have all possessions to blow us away. Is that like a plug? You can't just stick a finger in the wall.
No, you can, but
You get shot. Yeah. So what I'm asking you is, we have this essence, but when it comes down here, we have to have it revealed.
well, that's
Right.
something.
Why does the essence have to be revealed down here? I'm not understanding.
Well, don't we want to have it?
Yeah, so what happens is every time that you do a mitzvah,
Yeah.
you are revealing God's essence in this world. And this is what happens every single time that we do a mitzvah. Every time we do a mitzvah, we're revealing God's essence into this laptop that I'm speaking in right now, into this book that we're learning, into this brain, into this heart, into this tablecloth, into this room. And every single time a Jew does a mitzvah, they're bringing a little bit of God's essence into that space. Think about it like little candles that are being put in different places of this earth, and you miss a flight and you're stuck in an airport in Europe somewhere, and you're late to fill in, and you do a little mitzvah, and you do a little tzedakah, and you find yourself overnight. So you go to the local minyan, and you find the Chabad, and you do a little, a little whatever, a little prayer. What you're doing is all that's by divine design, because you're supposed to reveal God's essence in that specific place, right? Let's just continue this concept over here on page 217 as we elaborate. The connection between God's true essence and the lowest world, is seen in the fact that the lowest worlds below Atzilus, and especially this physical world, experience the feeling of having an independent existence. Only this physical world feels like it has an independent existence. It's an amazing concept. If you speak to an angel and you ask him, who created him? What's he going to tell you? Hashem. If you ask a soul that just died and ask him who created him, what's he going to tell you?
Hashem.
He's an Elam Emes in the world of truth, right? You ask a fellow Jew here and you say to him, who created you?
Mom and dad.
Please.
Me. I'm a self-made man. All right? I'm comfortable. I'm making a good living. He doesn't even understand the question. He doesn't even understand the question of what do you mean? Who created me? Like my parents? You mean like what is that? You mean that there's like a God that's making me? I don't even know what you're talking about. He doesn't even understand the question. You understand the difference here, right? The reason we're about to explain is because since God's essence is what created this world. Remember creation ex nihilo, the doctrine of perpetual creation. Since this world is being created by God that has no source, Adon Olam Hashem. It says in Adon Olam that God has no precedent, right? No beginning. Beli Rashit, Beli Tachlit. Without a beginning and without an end. Since we were created by an energy which has no beginning, God's essence. Therefore, we inherit the DNA of our parent, and we feel like we have no beginning. Just like God, who was not created by anything prior, so too we are the children of God's essence, and therefore we actively feel like we have no precedent, like nothing came before us. What was before God? Nothing. There was no such thing. There was exactly that's the answer. The answer is not nothing. I stand corrected, Rob. You just answered more correctly than I did. I said nothing before God, and that's incorrect. It's an incorrect answer. What I said. It's not that there was nothing before God. It's that God was always. God is eternal. God is immortal. God always was, always is, and always will be. Right? Always was. Right? So I just want you to understand this beautiful concept. The children inherit the characteristics of the parents. When the father's black, the kid's black. The father's mathematical head, the kid's got a mathematical head, right? The mother's got an artistic talent, the kid's gonna have that artistic talent. So when God is creating us from an energy which is his essence, B'li reshit, b'li tachlit, without a beginning and without an end. Therefore, the creation, us, is created with an awareness of the consciousness, with a default setting that we feel like we always were here and we always gonna be here. That's what we feel like. We're never gonna die. We don't even talk about our mortality until we absolutely have no choice. Right? So take a look at this beautiful concept here, page 217. The connection between God's true essence and the lowest world is seen in the fact that the lower worlds, below Atzilus, and especially this physical world, experience the feeling of having an independent existence. Although this feeling is false, because there is no true existence other than Hashem, it results from the connection between God's essence and this lower world. Meaning, since God's essence is an independent existence, because God has no source, because he is the only true existence and does not depend on anything else for his existence. Therefore, the lower world created by God's essence also feel that same independence, that they have an independent existence. And therefore, my friends, I want to just conclude this concept by saying, this is why it's when the sun sets that the sun shines. It's in the darkest part of godliness in this physical world, where godliness is completely unapparent. That's where you can shine and experience God's essence. So let's talk about this at a very practical level. The Muslims, the jihadists, they want to blow themselves up so that they can experience the pleasures of heaven. That's what they want. The Christians too talk about a better place. After someone dies, I mean, it's difficult to compare the Christians to the jihadists. Forgive me for that. I'm ideologically comparing a concept where heaven is better than earth in other faiths. Okay? Heaven is a better place than earth in other faiths, not in Judaism. You'll see why. In Christianity, when somebody dies, they say, well, they went to a better place. Jews do not say this because we don't believe that heaven is a better place. This earth is a better place. Darker, yes. More painful, yes. It's sunset here, folks. It's nighttime here. But this nighttime, says King Solomon, is where the sun will shine, is where your purpose will be fulfilled. It's only here that you can experience God's essence. Whereas in heaven, you can experience only a revelation of godliness, which means in heaven, you can experience godliness in a way that you can appreciate, in a way that's more comfortable for you. It's more revealed. It's more comfortable. But over here in this world, it's less comfortable. You don't see God anywhere. You got to be dealing with atheists and agnostics left, right, and center, right? You got to be dealing with people that make fun of your faith. I used to walk to shul as in my early years here, Chabad rabbi, and every Shabbos I used to walk like 2.25 miles to get to shul. It's hot. Every Shabbos, this punk walking by me. Like a punk, purple hair, earring, the whole skateboard situation, whatever. So we used to look at each other. And at one point, there was it dawned upon me that the same thing that I was thinking about him, he was thinking about me.
You look weird.
It occurred to me, we're thinking exactly the same thing about each other, right? So we're dealing in a world where, oh, you're religious? I'm so sorry. What did the rabbi do to you? Here in a world which is virtually dark and dense, this is where we're going to experience God's essence. And I want to just finish before your point, because I want to hear what you have to say. Just to close this out, we're now able to gain greater insight into why the Chanukah lights are after sunset. The purpose of kindling the lights of Chanukah is to light up the darkness of Biyah, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, which is after the setting of the sun of the world of emanation of Atzilus, by refining the physicality of the lowest worlds, which conceal the godliness within them, because we're lighting a light, right? We're lighting a holy light, a Chanukah light. We're able to bring out a revelation of godliness that is greater than the original source of these creations. By lighting up the night, we're connecting to God's essence, revealing God's essence, which is far more powerful than the spirituality, than the diluted godliness from whence they originate of these creations, and ultimately reveal God's essence by creating a dira betachtonim. Very, very powerful concept. Let's do this on air. What's your problem?
So if you attribute God's essence as good, and whenever there's a favorable miracle, You say God reveals his essence. The 67 war, the 73 war are defeating Iran. But doesn't God reveal his essence when there's an October 7th, when there's a Holocaust,
Look.
when there's a pogrom? Maybe that's God's essence.
So
Because there's more of those over the history of the Jewish people going back to the Bible. Maybe God's essence is, you know what? I'm giving you every chance for 5,000 years. Every time you screw it up.
Rob, you're asking an emotional question to an intellectual point, and let me explain. Yes, what you're saying is you're saying a protest. You're not even asking a question. You're just making a protest.
No, I'm
You're saying if God is in this world, then why are things not always good?
Why do you attribute God's essence to?
Let me explain to you what essence is. Let's discuss essence. Let's discuss essence for a moment. What's essence? If you had a choice between experiencing your wife's essence or your wife's happiness, what would you rather?
You have to tell me what essence is.
Oh, that's right. Essence is.
It's your nature. It's your everything.
No, essence is non-manifest. Essence is non-manifest, which means when you speak to someone and they're telling you a story and they're laughing and they're joking or they're crying, what you're doing is that you're experiencing their light, their revelation. If they're sharing with you some wisdom, or if they're doing something with you, or if they're speaking, they're revealing a part of themselves to you, right? But when you're experiencing someone's essence, someone's essence is nonverbal. So, for example, essence is very, very difficult to talk about. It's impossible. You can't. The minute you give it any form of definition, you've already no longer in the simple essence. It's very this. By the way, I want you to know this concept, Rob, is a foundational idea in Chassidus to talk about Atzmus. Atzmus is God's essence, right? Just to be able to, there's actually an interesting story about two Chassidim. The one Chassid asked another, "Can you describe to me God's essence?" So he says, "No, I can't. I can't describe essence to you because essence is indescribable."
Right. The definition of essence is the most significant element, quality, or aspect of a thing or a person. The most significant element, quality, or aspect. It's the entire thing.
Let me. You got to hear the story. You have to hear the story. So the Chassid asked the other Chassid, "So describe to me God's essence." And he said, "I can't, because at the moment I describe it, I'm going to be ruining it. I'm going to be defining it, right?" So he's no, but just give me something. Give me something to work with. I need something to understand God's essence. You're not talking about the essence of a tea bag. You're not talking about the essence of a book. You're not talking about the essence. You're talking about the essence of God, the essence of infinity, okay? Different to your definition over there on Google. It's different. The essence of infinity. So how do you define, how do you explain the essence of infinity? So he begs him and he begs him and he begs him. Eventually, the one being asked the question acquiesces. And he says, okay. And he says, Atzmus is, essence is. And as he starts talking, the guy gives it slap across the face. He said, what was that for? So he says, because you just messed it up. The minute that you said essence is, you already proved that you are not talking about essence anymore. It was a teachable moment. This was a learning experience, this encounter. Yeah. So let me just finish my point. I want to answer your question. I want to try to answer your question. I want to attempt to answer your question by saying this. Essence is not something which makes sense. It says, when God's essence is at play, only good things happen. No. Oh, no. When God's essence is at play, it means God is present in a way that neither you nor I could ever possibly capture, grasp, comprehend, or appreciate.
I agree with you. But then, if you accept that, then say, October 7th, God revealed his essence.
Of course he did.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything that happens in this world is God's
But
essence
you never
manifest.
hear anybody say that.
Because they don't know what God's essence
They always
is.
say, oh, Syria, look at what we've done to Syria. God
Hang
revealed
on.
his essence.
We said all the time. We said every single day in davening. Who recreates every single day in his goodness, every single action of this world. We say it every single day. Every single day. By the way, what creates ex nihilo? In his goodness. This is the words that we say in a siddur. Who recreates in his goodness every single day the acts of creation. So any single event that happens in this earth, from the fluttering leaf to the downfall of the Iranian regime, is all a manifestation of God's essence. Now, God's essence is nothing that we can understand or appreciate. So it's not like we can say that in God's essence, everything is good. You know who tapped into God's essence? I want to explain this to you. Purim. Haman. Haman in the Purim story, and this is also very, very deep Hasidic discussions about why Purim is called Purim. Why is Purim called Purim? Purim is such a random, weird name. Purim means raffles or lots. Like what's that got to do with anything? It's like a pure footnote in the story of Purim, right? It's like calling the Hanukkah story dreidels. Like, okay, there was a dreidel. Like, what's the Purim? What's the lottery got? So Haman went to kill the Jews because he used a Ouija board or a raffle. Like, okay, so what? What's it got to do with anything? Chassidus explains like this. Raffles means that Haman understood that when it comes to God's revelation, that's when he favors the Jews. But if you tap into God's essence, in God's essence, he creates every single thing at the same time. Jew and non-Jew, sinner and righteous, right and wrong are all simultaneously created. In God's essence, there's no such thing as righteous or so sinful. And if you can tap into that zero gravity, Purim, raffles, randomness, lack of order, if you can tap into that energy, then maybe you might be able to manipulate a result which favors the anti-Semites.
So then what is God's true essence? It's like the
What's are you asking me the question that the Chassid asked?
How a person's,
Am I supposed to answer that question now?
similar to how a person's true essence is revealed by the way he behaves within the privacy of his own home.
Oh, okay.
So how is God revealing his true essence within the privacy
Beautiful.
of his own
Now
home?
what you're doing is beautiful.
Yeah.
What you're doing is that you're looking at the minutia of the words of the discourse to try desperately to find some frame of reference, and that's perfect. This is how true study is supposed to evolve. Before I just get to that, I want to just give you one more example, which is a little more obvious in the text. In the text, we said that God's essence manifests in this world in our sense of independent existence, right? You see, that was easy to understand. So one thing which I can tell you about essence is that if you're essence, you have no prior cause. Prior cause. Like you answered beautifully to Marty's question. What was before God? And I incorrectly answered nothing, which is incorrect. Your answer was God always was and is and will be, right? So one thing which we do know about essence is that it has no prior cause. Nothing came before it. Therefore, how does that manifest in this world? In narcissistic beings. Beings that feel like they always were. Like we don't feel accountable to nobody. A Jew has to put on a yarmulke on his head to say, yes, I am accountable. But most people don't wear a yarmulke because they don't even feel accountable to nothing and nobody. Yerei Malka, in awe of the king. I recognize that there is a king and I'm in awe of him. That's what the yarmulke is a testament to, right? But most people don't feel that. There is no yarmulke. There's nothing that came before me. I am who I am. I do what I do, and I'm not responsible to anybody. So that's one component, or I'm not even going to call it a component. It's one consequence that derives from essence, because I can't give a component to essence. Now you're asking another interesting question. So then it says in the Maimer that just like a man is most comfortable in his house, so too God's essence somehow, whatever that means, is in this world. Let me explain to you. So we're right now around this table. You're surrounded by other people. So there's certain things that you're not going to do or say right now. Let's be honest. There's certain behaviors that you won't do because it's not appropriate to do in public, right? But when you're in the comfort of your own home, you're just going to let loose. You can do whatever you want. If you're in your own private space, you're going to do whatever you're going to do, and you're not going to feel inhibited. That is how I understand what we just read. That in this world, God is uninhibited. That's what he wants to be. But he needs us to invite him in through the mitzvahs that we do. Whenever we do a mitzvah, whenever we study Torah, we're inviting God's essence into this world. These are the themes of Tanya chapter 34, 35, and 36, and 37, where Tanya talks about how to bring God's essence into this world and why it says in the Mishnah something amazing. It says, contrary to that Muslim or Christian way of looking at heaven and earth, it says in the Mishnah, Ethics of the Fathers, that 1 minute in this world is more precious than the entirety of the world of heaven. Can you imagine how Torah looks at heaven? 1 moment in this world is more precious than the entirety of the heavenly experience. Why is that? Because 1 moment of you doing a mitzvah in this world allows you to draw and tap into God's essence. Whereas in heaven, you can never, ever, ever encounter God's essence. In heaven, the only thing that you can encounter is God's revelation, God's personality, so to speak, God's very, very diluted forms of expression, which are meaningful to you, to souls and angels, where they can encounter and experience prophetic whatever. But only in this world is where God's essence is revealed. This is a concept that's got to grow in us, guys. It's got to grow. I'm trying to break it up into smaller pieces, but it really dives into a very, very deep analysis of our spirituality and our mystical experience. Chanukah is just a tangent. It's just a hook over here, by the way. You realize that Chanukah just happens to be that you're lighting the Chanukah candles from the time that it's dark. Similar to what King Solomon is telling us, that you're going to succeed when your sun sets. That's when it's going to shine. Like Jacob, who prospers when he's in a desperate place. And maybe, by the way, maybe you can advance this and say that a person prospers not when he's comfortable, when he's under pressure.
That's Israel.
When you have a competitor in your business, right? When you have an enemy that makes you uncomfortable, maybe that's what's going to bring out the best in you. Maybe it's all rooted in that incredible wisdom of King Solomon. And think of how King Solomon said this. He just used 2 lines. The sun yearns to set. It's when it sets that it shines. Like a sentence that just doesn't sound right. But what he's talking about is something that's going to take us maybe weeks to unpack, to unload, and to experience. So try to read the text. It's important that you have the textbook, so you can try to reread it a few times to try to understand. Yes, Mark.
Rabbi, you started when you said when you're most comfortable is not where you're needed, and when you're most comfortable is not where. When you're most comfortable is not where you're needed, not where you're comfortable. So my question to you is, when you're studying with fellow rabbis, is that more stimulating to you than studying with us? In a sense, there's that a different type of discourse on it.
It's much more comfortable for me to study with fellow rabbis because we don't have to cover basics. It's much more necessary for me to study with you because here I'm fulfilling my purpose, right? And indeed, for me, this is a very good example. It's a very good example. If I want to reach the essence of the wisdom, it's a brilliant example they bring up. Much I've learned from my colleagues, more I've learned much I've learned from my teachers, more I've learned from my colleagues, but more than anybody I've learned from my students. Brilliant example. Why is this? Why have I learned more than anybody from my students? This is a quote from the Talmud. Why? Doesn't it make sense that most I've learned from my teachers and least I've learned from my students? It's because when I'm challenged, when I'm not comfortable, but rather where I'm needed, which is talking to my students, that's what causes my sun to set, because it's not my light shining right now. I'm dealing with your questions, right? And that's what's going to expose me to the essence of the idea. When I'm learning from my teachers, I'm just experiencing the diluted wisdom. When I'm learning with my colleagues, I'm experiencing a little less of the diluted wisdom. But when I'm teaching, because I'm focusing on where I'm needed and know where I'm comfortable, it's there that I am going to experience the essence of the idea. Why? Because I'm moving beyond my ego to focus on you. I'm doing not what's comfortable, I'm doing where I'm needed. And when you move away from ego and you go to where you're needed, like the setting of the sun, like the lighting of the candles at the dark, like Jacob going to Baghdad, like God creating a world where God's hidden, right? It's there that you're going to experience the essence of the light. Wow, beautiful. Thank you.
I got a question for you, Rabbi.
Yeah.
if I'm not supposed